Right now, 2024, if you were to give an advice to someone buying an average, let's say, property, let's just keep it below $1 million.
Okay.
What would you invest in?
There's never a bad time to buy a good location. However, on the flip side, there's never a good time to buy a bad location. The type of property that I'm going to suggest is one that I've been suggesting for the 20 years, okay? It is a property that has a minimum of 2 doors, okay? Which would have as an upstairs and a downstairs. I would say you need to find a property, to answer your question, with multiple doors. Right now, at the time of this recording, April of 2024, look for something with a couple of doors.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Reality Check, where we discuss what's happening in Toronto's real estate market, where we're going, and hopefully figure out what the market is doing. And today is an anniversary date. 2 years we're doing Reality Check.
Where's the champagne?
I was gonna say, the balloons and everything.
You're the champagne, you're the
there
gift.
You go.
This is the guy who
Guys,
got
if
us
you don't know
into
who
this
this
situation
is.
for the last 2 years, got us to do these
blame me.
podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's been amazing. I didn't even think like we were gonna last 2 years. I did that
Yeah.
for just to see if we're gonna last till the end of the year.
Well,
And then
We did it.
Yeah, we did it.
kudos to
Good
you guys.
job.
Congratulations
Thanks,
to you
man.
guys. I'm not sure if you guys know this.
Okay, wait, before that,
Okay.
no one knows who this is, maybe.
Well,
Please
they're here
introduce
for you
yourself.
guys, not me. But Jazz Tech are based out of Toronto.
Yeah.
We work in the same office, obviously. We've been doing this now together for almost 10 years. I think we've been
Yeah.
at this office together. Local real
Nima.
estate agent, good-looking Indian guy. They can decide all that kind of
Love it.
stuff.
Top realtors, what units? Number 1 unit?
I think we were number,
Yeah.
last year in 2023, I think we were number 2 in units and number 2 in GCI.
That's
so it's kinda cool.
crazy.
Yeah,
Don't
man,
cut
we're really
yourself
blessed.
short.
Yeah, we're really blessed.
How many units so that people know how many units we're talking about?
655 units last year.
655
I'm gonna crawl
units.
in.
Not all
the
done by
table
me
now.
though. I should say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I got an amazing business partner. I call him the big bald Greek guy, Simeon. Love him. My business partner for the last, I think, coming up to about 17, 18 years. And we have a wicked leadership team. Laura Stewart as our VP, Bobby
Yeah,
Hume.
shout out to Laura.
Shout out to Laura. And then I got about 60 agents, and they're really boots to the ground.
Wow, eh?
And I
60.
think some of the stats and all the stuff that we're going to be talking about today, like you guys are in the business,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's going to be coming directly from the streets as well. But
From the
putting that
streets.
aside for a sec, putting that aside for a second, I'm not sure if you guys know a stat. 90% of people that get started with doing some type of YouTube show / podcast, 90% of people don't get past their first 10 episodes
Why is that?
because they give up, just like anything else.
It
right?
is. It is a commitment.
It's a commitment.
Yeah.
And at the start,
Totally.
it's like, oh, this is sexy, this is fun, and okay, like they get all excited, but then they don't
It's work.
have the longevity, and it's not sustained. And I think it's not sustained sometimes because they don't actually really enjoy it.
Or
And-
they don't have time in the market and there's nothing to talk about.
well, maybe, but look, you guys got past that, and so that's why I want
I
to
think
say
it's
congratulations. Because
Thank you.
Here's the other thing: out of the 10% that make it past their first 10 episodes / podcasts, 90% of them don't get past their first 20. So you're really
wow.
like you're in the 1-2 percentile of people who are actually getting it done, staying committed to it, and maybe your viewers and listeners haven't wrote that in the comments yet, and I urge them to do that. But I want to give you guys the flowers because you deserve them.
Thank you.
And
Can you come on every time?
they'll get bored of me after a while. Dev, that's my
I
wife.
won't.
I know she's
Sorry,
bored of
guys.
me, but so congratulations,
Thank
guys. I'm
you.
really proud of you guys.
Thank you.
so
No, I
much.
mean, like, listen, kudos to you for pushing us to do this. I
Yeah.
remember the very first episode I said it before, like, we recorded 20 minutes and it took 4 hours to do it.
That
Like,
was
I
the
walked
most
out of that
brutal thing. I
studio
was
saying,
exhausted. I'll never
What
forget
am
it.
I doing
Oh,
here?
the team has to bring that in at some point into this. We'll find
As a
that
segue,
footage.
yeah.
Some
Oof.
I
footage
forgot
of
about
back-
that. Holy shit.
That
yeah.
was crazy.
I was sweating. My makeup was melting. Nima was like
I
looking at
walked
me.
out
Get it
saying, like, okay,
together.
we're not even doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Look, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And
Yeah.
I think, at some point, we're obviously going to transition to the talk of possibly finding investment opportunities, becoming an investor. Maybe you're thinking as you're watching right now that you're renting and you want to become a first-time home buyer. The best strategy that I can give you, doing content, becoming an investor, becoming a first-time home buyer, putting out content, whatever it is, starting a business, is ready, fire, aim. And I know that screws with a lot of people because we were raised to be hey, like look before you leap. Don't pull the trigger until everything is lined up.
Yeah.
But look, it's a lot easier if you continuously pull the trigger. You'll know if you're too
gonna
far
work.
left, too far right. You're not going to be sitting there like 99% of people in paralysis by analysis where they actually don't even pull the trigger, right? So it doesn't matter. Business, content, an investor, first-time home buyer, and in real estate, it's actually easy because you can put in a contract and make it due diligent on your lawyer's approval, financing,
Yeah, there's
home
an exit
inspection.
strategy.
That strategy of ready, fire, aim is one that more people should use.
I think that's a great
I got
point.
the same pep talk this morning by my man. This is like overkill for me. Ready, fire, aim.
No, that's the whole thing, because a lot of times...
Jess, can you shut up? I just
No,
said it. Yeah.
no, I love the emphasis, and I think more people should take that on, including myself.
We spend a lot of time just like strategizing, but like once you start doing it, I've been a victim of it so many times that
Yep.
we sit down and
Yeah.
do it. I'm of a person that like I like to just think about something and do it. Then you learn it.
You
with a
try
mistake.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're more that way. You
Because
try and
I
error.
figured out if you sit down, especially in today's day and age, if you sit down and figure that out for the
Too
next
much time
6
to
months,
think and you lose the
things
opportunity.
will just pass you,
Yeah.
and that idea is going to be old.
Well, I
So-
mean, most people like in content world, they want to make sure that the background is amazing. What's the name? Like I remember even now going back to our conversations, you guys didn't spend too much time there. It was like, here, I have a couple of names that I'm
I
thinking.
remember I
You
just
didn't-
walked to you and said like this, and here's a few names. What do you think?
And that's it, right? Like, but I have people that
Works.
5 years later, I've been talking to them, and I'm like, hey, did you get started yet? No, man, I'm still looking at the background that I want.
Perfectionist.
I'm like, 5 years later, bro, you could have done 1,000 episodes in
Yeah.
that time.
I think
right?
we've changed
So-
the background, what, 3 times, 4
Well,
times
I
now?
remember
You're
when we were at the
super raw,
studio.
the way you do
when
your
we were at the
content.
studio, I liked the background. Then we came out of the studio, went to another studio.
Yeah,
Then I'm
yeah.
like, okay, I don't know, I like that one. I'm like, no, who cares? Like,
Who
just
gives
do
a
it.
crap?
Yeah.
People want to just make sure that the content is valuable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's so subjective in itself, right? Like some people like chocolate
Where
ice
they're
cream,
at.
some people like vanilla.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, are you bringing enough energy and is it valuable to people? And
Yeah.
you're only going to find out if you start the feedback
Yeah.
loop.
And on that note, we need to get you guys to
Yeah.
subscribe
And those
if-
comments.
and put
for
some
feedback.
comments there. And if you think this is valuable for people, please share it with them. With that, let's get into stats and
go.
see what's going on first quarter of 2024. So things picked up clearly. I mean, February I think was pretty crazy, and then going into March things kind of slowed down. We had a little bit of a shorter month because of the whole Easter thing, but sales did pick
And
up.
March break.
And March break too. Yeah.
And it was really close, right? This was one of the first
Everything
years.
was there, yeah.
You had March break, and then you
was
had
all
like
together.
Easter
I think it was like
weekend.
yeah,
Good
10 days
Friday.
later it was Good Friday and,
Yeah.
and
Felt like we
Easter
were
Monday.
off the whole month.
Yeah, it was weird. So I think people like just kind of
Yeah.
took a lot of time off, and then you're not going to get the same type of volume, right?
Yeah, yeah, but things still heated up because the sales went up by almost about 1,000 units. So we're at 6,500. 60 active listings are at 12,500. So they actually went up from February. But the funny thing is the month of inventory has gone down even more. We're down to 1.9. Previously, we were close to 2%, to be exact, 1.98. And the average price actually went up a little bit. We were at 1.108 in February. Now we're at 1,121,600. So it has gone up, and the days on the market has shortened by 5 days. So that goes to show things are picking up.
I mean, I always look at the months of inventory because that for me
Yeah.
is the indicator out of all of them. And if you look at certain pockets in the GTA, because that 1.92 that you quoted right there,
Yeah.
Nima, that was for overall GTA,
Yeah.
right?
You know
So-
what, though? Under all the categories right now,
Yeah.
there's 2 or less months of inventory.
Yep.
So that says 2 things. Literally that buyers are absorbing the inventory and that there's not enough inventory.
Well, it's actually scary, right? For a city of 6.6 million coming to 7 million soon,
Wow, yeah.
that you only have a month and 3 weeks of inventory, like that's quite scary. That's why values always continue to rise. I know we've kind of been quite stagnant right now, but that has to do with interest rates and some of the other factors. But with months of inventory from a micro perspective, I always like to look at what I call the swing cities, right? I pick on my paisans in Brampton, that's where all my paisans are. And then you look on the east side where you look at Durham. You're at like a month and a week of inventory, right? Where if you compare it to last year at this time, you were above about 3.5, 4 months. So you were actually getting really close to a strong buyer's market. It was always balanced at that time. But now you're noticing again, it's a back to a strong seller's market. You're not seeing multiple offers in every single market, but we're starting to see that happen more and more.
That's so true. So going back to Durham, right now we're just over 1 month of inventory. We're at like 1.07. So like that's like four
It's
and a
probably
half.
It's hectic over
It's
there.
less than a month in a week.
Yeah, and Brampton is like month and a half of inventory. So with these markets, this is why we're seeing prices go up. And just getting back to your point, yes, we haven't seen huge price growth, but we got to look at some of the micro market because, for example, like Oakville last year, this time it was crazy. Like
Now it's down though, month over month.
so, month over month gone up down a little
Slightly,
bit, but
slightly.
like it jumped drastically because
From
there was
year
a
over
huge.
year.
There was like almost 5 months of inventory in the detached segment. Now that's gone down, and we saw a huge uptick in the prices. But overall, in Toronto, for example, that's one of the only regions that's got over 2 months of
What is
inventory.
it? 2.5 months, I think.
Yeah,
it's
almost
at
2.5
Toronto.
months.
Two and a bit.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is condos.
Yep.
Yeah, just
For
like-
sure. Well, the gap is so big now, right? In terms of what you're seeing from a detached price to what condos are selling for, even on the resale market. I actually think that you're going to now start to see that gap get a little bit smaller. People are going to start to now sway towards condos because the price of a detached is so much higher, right? I think it's a difference of like $1 million
Affordability.
now or something
Yeah.
like that. Like in
Well,
terms
condos
of
are super low too right now, at all-time low.
all-time low, right?
Yeah.
And so hence why I think you'll start to see some of the smart money now move to condos because the average person can't purchase that detached home because it's increased so much. So what happens? Like this is what, and you guys know this more than anyone. At home, honey, these are the talks that happen, right? Like, honey, okay, we can't afford that detached home. I know we wanted the 3-bedroom with the picket fence and all the white picket fence in the backyard, but I think we're going to need to stomach something a little bit smaller, i.e. a condo, and then work our way up the property ladder. I think in the next 2 months or so, you're going to start to see condo sales start to increase because there's not much choice. You can't look at a detached, the average person just can't purchase
You're
it.
priced out.
You're priced out. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah,
Unless you drive out, though, right? Like,
Yes,
I've
drive
always used,
till you can afford.
boom. Like I always say that you drive till you qualify,
Yeah.
right? And so I think unless people are starting to move out to the Kitchener, Waterloos, and you're hearing a little bit more of it in the Hamiltons, then you might be able to get that semi-detached, detached home. But if you need to be close into the GTA, like specifically Toronto, then you're going to need to get into a condo.
But I do, to your point, I think it's worth buying something a little bit further out because this is not a forever plan. This is a get in the market plan, just to circle back to your aim, fire, shoot.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Live there 5 years and then take the equity out and come back closer to the city.
See that what you just said there, Dev, completely makes sense.
Like-
the problem is that it doesn't make sense for a lot of people to actually do that strategy. Why?
Location.
Because location, but I also think there's this this thought that they're worried about what other people are going
Pride.
to say about
Yep.
them. You know what I mean?
know.
It happens like, I think it used to
Isn't
be
that
called
stupid, though?
No, it's really
Isn't
stupid.
that stupid,
because
though?
it used to be called, keeping up with the Joneses. In
Yeah.
Brampton, we call it keeping up with the Sings, which is if you buy a 2,500 square foot home,
Yeah.
I would do showings, and they're like, we have to get 2,700. I'm like, just out of curiosity, how'd you come up with the number 2,700? Like, that's kind of like agent talk. Like, hey, what's the square footage of the property, right? And they're like, well, 2,700. There's 4 of us, and I'm like, guys, you don't need 2,700. I know, but it comes out. I know, but my uncle bought 2,500, and so we got to buy a little bit bigger now, right? Just to be at that house party to say,
Yeah.
look at my 2,700 square foot home, this nonsense. And then what they should be doing is stomach the least home possible.
Yeah.
So if you can live in 1,600 square feet, build the equity, to your point,
Yeah.
Dev, build the equity and then move up the ladder. But somewhere at some point it got lost. Like this is year 20, I'm going into year 21 in this business.
Oh, wow.
So I have I got a pretty big sample size right now. And if, I don't know when the switch happened, maybe a decade ago or so, where people just felt like they couldn't deal with that smaller home or that smaller condo. They had to get something that was bigger. But the amount of equity they could have grown, they could have actually done what I really want to see more people do, which is get income properties. Personally, and we could agree to disagree with this.
No, I think we all agree.
Well, in terms of
Yeah.
I don't even think that if guys and gals are renting right now, that they have to own where they live.
No, I agree.
Right? Like, I don't think they have to own where they live. There's definitely a good reason to do so, rather than wasting money on rent. But as long as you invest the rest of your income, you can actually create wealth. But you're not going to be able to do that if you're having a hard time paying for that 2,700 square foot.
That's actually a really good point, because I had a client, in my opinion, smartest guy. So he is renting, and he decided, because he didn't have enough down payment, he ended up buying in Kingston a bungalow that was like 350,000, 360,000. It's cash flowing slightly positive, but it's carrying it. So
he's living there, or he bought an investment property?
He
rents it out.
He rents it out.
Okay.
And the reason for that was, listen, you know what? That's the only thing I can afford, and it's gonna carry itself. And how much is it gonna grow, Nima? Listen, it's gonna be minimum inflation at the very least. It's gonna be, for the last 5 years, it's gone up by about. Kingston has gone up just over 6%, which you can average. We're always looking at 6 to 7%.
Yeah.
But then it's cash flowing positive, and he's just renting here. He would never be able to buy for that price here. It would be like a bachelor in an older condo.
Yeah.
Couldn't live in it, and he would never buy, and that money probably would have gone to waste. But now it's invested, and he's got a property.
And
there.
he has the flexibility, right? So as the tenant,
Yes.
obviously in Ontario, it's favored to tenants. He can pick up and go anytime.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to
Yeah.
really worry about the upkeep. When
Nothing.
the washer goes, he calls the landlord, says, hey,
Yeah.
dude, fix your
Headache
washer.
free.
Headache free. But what he's doing...
Upsize, downsize, do whatever he feels like
he
it
can do
year to year.
whatever he wants. It's actually, if you look at the uber wealthy, a lot of them don't own where they live.
Yeah.
They actually don't. What they've done is they've taken that wealth and just invested it into real estate, but they don't necessarily own where they live.
And that's actually a good point, because I think if you, let's just say, the interest on your mortgage, if
Yeah.
it's your principal resident, what are you going to do with it?
Right. You can't write it off.
You can't
do anything with it.
But
Yep.
if you own an investment property, and let's say that grows enough that you refinance the whole thing by your principal rest cash.
You could.
Yeah,
That's a great
and-
option.
Yeah, and then all that interest is getting written off, and your house is paid off, and that's it. You don't have to pull money out from your company now to pay for that and pay tax on that.
Now,
Nima's very.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
to me, that's a pretty.
well, I think it's a
nice
matter of
concept.
it's like Monopoly, like we played
He's
when we
triggered.
were kids, right? Like buy more as much as you can. Now, the caveat there is, and the disclaimer is, make sure that you sit down with somebody like Dev and Nima who know what the heck they're talking about, and they've done this for people over and over again.
Yeah.
And also realize, what do you have the stomach for? You know what I mean? Like, can you do a refi and be okay with what we're seeing right now? Like, I've refied a lot of my properties, but I'm at a place right now where, okay, I'm putting money into I'm putting money into my
I'm cool
properties,
with it, yeah.
and I'm okay with it because I still have a day job. Like, I still have a job where that I can pay for that stuff. But if you're someone who loses sleep at night, this might not be the
right
type
fit for
of
you.
investing for you. However, which brings me to my next thought, which is you don't need 67 doors. Like, I know it's cool on Instagram and on social media. Like, people are like, I got 800 doors and I got 47,000 and whatever the heck they say. You know what I mean? If you just buy one property,
One good
that you
door
like,
is all you
one,
need.
That's all you need. Like, if you buy one today, especially to our 25, we got some of our videographers and editors here in the room. Like, these guys are all good-looking 25, 26-year-olds. Like, if they buy,
They're smiling.
Yeah. If they buy like one right now and rent out, in 25 years, the thing's going to be paid off. And you're going to have to deal with a little bit of managing. Yeah, the tenant you might have to replace, and the toilet might break, but there's a little bit of managing there. But in 25 years, the whole property is going to be paid off, and it's going to 4x. This is just taking black and white numbers. You look at the last 100 years in the GTA.
These are facts.
Facts. Like, I'm not just hyperbole, just talking as a real estate agent. Like, 100 years, big sample, data there. Every 10 years, prices double. So we know in 20 years, it's going to 4x. So you buy your $800,000 property.
Maybe even more, because right now everything's so quick and fast track.
Yeah, and I think it just sounds weird, right? Like, if you tell somebody something's going to double at 800,000 today, that it's going to be worth 1.6, they think you're on crack. And
Only
I get
when
it.
they do it do they know.
100%, right? Like, I know it sounds weird, but it's always worked out like that. Now, it might be in year 9, it might be in year 11. It's on average every 10 years.
So, great point. And going back to what you mentioned about the gap between condos and detached, we want to talk about investment in real estate. So right now, actually, you were pretty on point. So the average
Was he
detached
now?
in Toronto.
Not
If
surprised.
I wasn't, I maybe shouldn't be
We're
sitting
like
here.
here with our
It's
laptops.
funny
He's
because
like freestyling it.
I was looking at it because I didn't look at the stats for detached and condos for last month. I've been following it for every month for last year.
What's the price gap?
It was always around 700 to 800.
Yeah.
And when you said $1 million, I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me go take a look.
check.
And it is actually about $1 million. It's Right now,
That's
the
mental.
average detached is 1,708,000.
Yeah.
Average condo,
It's 7.
730,000.
So I was off by a little bit, but not much.
No,
yeah,
that's
so it's
amazing.
pretty-
it's
it's actually a million
incredible.
bucks, yeah,
Amazing.
so,
Like,
yeah.
Off the cusp?
Like
Yeah.
280,000, like price gap. That's $1 million price gap on an average property.
And that's
That's
what we,
2 homes somewhere.
And so, like, when I said the 20 years, I didn't say that to impress people. It was more to impress upon people where the data's coming from. I've seen this gap before. And I just want to make sure that in the 20 years, I've never seen the million, but it's always been flirting around sometimes at 600, 700,000. But every time that happens, then the push goes to condos. So if you're thinking about possibly investing right now, if you have all your ducks in order, you got the capital, you got the stomach, you sat down with an independent mortgage broker that's savvy when it comes to investing, you sat down with your brokers, Nima and Dev, then and only then I would highly recommend to look at a condo, because this window of opportunity is not going to be around for too long. And it's just like, and now I shouldn't say it, I'm not saying that it's never going to come back. It's just not going to be around for too long, where you're going to start to see, we're going to sit here in 3 months from now, that gap's not going to be $1 million anymore. It's probably going to be about 600 grand, because so many more people are going to move to the condo market.
Because we're pushing all the people to the condo market
Well,
right now.
and they're going there by themselves, Dev, right? No, I know. To me, I'm a real estate broker. Buy
I
a
know.
semi-detached, buy a townhome. I really don't
You're
care.
like your portfolio is just
I want to I want people to
fire.
diversify as much.
But going back to 2000, let's say 17, when the detached went up,
Yes.
condo market was pretty hot, but 2018 actually condo market went crazy because still the gap was so high, it didn't make sense to go and buy, let's say, even like a semi-detached or a townhouse in Toronto. You would go buy a large condo because the condo hadn't picked up. And right now, this is what we're seeing. As a matter of fact, since August of 2022, the prices, the average price of condo has been in the low 700s. It's been hovering between 740 to 700,000 the whole time. It's a year and a half of this. So this is gonna go up. I mean, like, there's no way this is gonna stay here.
Nope.
And we're seeing this right now firsthand in the larger condos. The larger condos right now are selling at a way faster pace, especially in Toronto, than the 1 bedroom, 1 bedroom plus, because those are like where the families go.
I mean, you're taking the words out of my mouth there, right? Because if you look at the demographic of that buyer, it is going to be somebody who is probably married with a kid, another kid on the way. So, like, that's going to be kind of the demographic. Starter family who were thinking about that property. Like in terms of a semi-detached or a detached, and now because of not only the purchase price, but also the cost of borrowing, right? And I think we're all kind of waiting for the same thing. I mean, the day of this recording, I mean, the announcement came out that the Bank of Canada is just keeping it neutral. They're not making any changes. But when there's a drop, which I'll go on record and say I think, and I'm not like I have inside track on this, but I just feel like it's going to happen in the next announcement, which will be sometime in June. That's where you're going to see the significant price increase now, because everybody that was on the fence and those conversations about, honey, should we rent, should we buy, they're going to make that jump, because we're starting to see it, hence why the months of inventory is so low in so many parts of the GTA. It's just that it hasn't happened at the speed that we maybe thought it was, based on the fact that water always finds its level. So this new rate environment we're in, people are kind of getting used to it now. I bought my first property in 2006. Interest rate was 4.5% on a 5-year fixed. My brother and my two older brothers, we bought 3 houses in a subdivision, okay? Like brand new subdivision. 4.5% on all 3 of those rates. We left the bank like we robbed it. Like, we were like, oh my God, like 4.5%, bro. Like, this is amazing.
Those are healthy rates.
Those are healthy. It was amazing.
Rates.
But we're not that far off right now.
We're not.
On a 5-year fix, maybe on a 3-year fix, what is it, like 5.2, 5.3-ish you can get it for, where the younger generation just didn't see this. They haven't felt a 4.5%, 5.5% mortgage rate. We got so used to 1.99 and 2%, but this is kind of where it's going to probably be for a while. Even when rates come down a little bit, how much are they going to come down? Like, we're probably going to be at a 5-year fixed at 4.5%.
I think people think 3 is high.
Because they
Right
got
now.
1.99,
I know,
right?
I
Like,
know.
that stuff is not coming back. In fact, the only reason it probably will is if, like, we get into a pandemic again, war breaks out, and those are 2 things that nobody wants to see again, obviously. Other than that, just get used to this 4.5%. That's kind of what we're going to see.
The only people that should really be feeling that 5.5% or 5%, whatever it was, is the people that bought in 2020 at the variable.
Yep.
They were in, like, they really got crucified.
Yep.
But like you said, it's keeping up with the Sings, keeping up with the Jones. People, if they're pre-approved at 1.5, they're going to stretch that 1.5 to 1.6 if they can. Everybody, nobody does a conservative approach to purchasing. Everybody wants more, bigger, better. And that's where you get hit.
And they did get crucified, but I think they're going to be okay if they hold on, right? Because
if they can,
the one thing that's going to happen is we're still going to be bringing in people. And I know you guys have spoken about it a lot, and people who are watching and listening right now have heard it, but that is very important to understand, is that the fact that the government, the business model of the government, and like people need to understand that it's a business model. Yeah. The way that it works, a business needs to bring in money and then they figure out all their expenses, okay? And the way that they bring in money is by bringing in people who pay taxes. And those people are called immigrants. And at no point is this stopping.
Yeah.
This is not stopping because otherwise you're not going to be able to keep this machine going, which brings in money. Because if they just left it, we wouldn't have enough taxes that we're paying, and they can't increase it so much because we'll revolt, right? Like we'll uprise in that sense, and there'll be an uproar. So they got to keep bringing in people. As they bring in people, they need a place to stay. We can't build anymore. I shouldn't say we can't build anymore. We can't build as much as we need because we're on this real estate island, you know, with the restriction with the green belt, the lake and all that. That the fact is that the rents are going to go up. So make a long story longer, you're going to be fine if you hold on because the rents are going to start to increase
like
as
everything,
well, like everything else.
So, I mean,
I want to have you on always.
Yeah, that's
I really do.
Awesome. And to be honest, like this conversation can go for another hour.
Yeah, it really can.
Right now, 2024, if you were to give an advice to someone buying an average, let's say, property, let's just keep it, below $1 million.
Okay.
What would you invest in?
I probably right now would look into, look, I always say this, right, and I'll definitely answer your question there, Nima, is that there's never a bad time to buy a good location. However, on the flip side, there's never a good time to buy a bad location, okay? So I want to preface my answer by saying that it doesn't matter what's happening with the rates and all that. At the end of the day, if you buy in a good location, when it comes to real estate, there's never a bad time for that. But on the flip side, you can buy at downtown Toronto, right? Sometimes
on the wrong street.
On the wrong street in downtown Toronto, which is location, and that could be the best of times, and that's not going to appreciate. I know buildings in downtown Toronto. You guys know that it doesn't matter. They don't appreciate because there's such a stigma around the builder, the building, or whatever it may be. Personally, the type of property that I'm going to suggest is one that I've been suggesting for the 20 years, okay? And it is, all right, it is a property that has a minimum of 2 doors, okay? Which would have, and I call it a Brampton special or Durham special, as an upstairs and a downstairs. And under that $1 million, you can still find properties that have 2 doors. Now, that is the type of property, if you're getting into this for the first time and you might not have that 20% down. Now, as a first-time home buyer, you don't need to have the 20% down. There's a lot of rhetoric out there. Not a lot of people know. Is what I would do is with that same property, live in the basement and rent out the upstairs, and you could do that without the 20% down, right? Or
the reverse, live in the main and.
Yeah, personally, I think if you can stomach living in the basement,
who's doing more
rent?
Right. Who's doing that?
Exactly.
That's the problem.
The smart people are,
but
there's not enough of them, in my opinion, right? Because if you live downstairs and rent out the upstairs, you're going to be bringing in more cash flow and more rent and more income. The other option is to house hack and find a property maybe with 4 doors and 4 units, live in one of them and rent out the other. So I would say you need to find a property, to answer your question, with multiple doors. Okay. Right now, at the time of this recording, April of 2024, look for something with a couple of doors.
Yeah, and doesn't have to be detached. It could be a semi-detached.
Oh no, a semi-detached is
100%.
Yeah, now you'll have a tough time maybe finding a townhome with a basement apartment.
A bungalow.
Semis,
retrofit it.
100. It doesn't need to be 2-story. It just needs to be something.
And now is the time, because you're right. This is probably one of the last years probably we can find detached. Let's say even in Durham. under $1 million
Yep.
with a basement apartment.
Yep. I mean, in Brampton, you can still find it. And I like those two places, by the way. I mean, at the end of the day,
You gave a type and location.
well, you know, I want
What
to
else
bring a
do
little
you
bit
want?
more
Giving, what do
value
you
than
need
you
us
asked
for
for.
now?
However, to even add to that, like Toronto is the spot. For me, if you look at 416
yeah.
Toronto, over time, it always appreciates the most. It's where all the jobs are. It's
Yeah.
where everybody wants to be, yada, yada, yada. The best transit, and I mean that loosely because it's not saying much about the rest of the GTA, because if Toronto's the best. However, you can get into those swing cities of Brampton and Durham with a less upfront cost.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay certain Toronto taxes, or the purchase price is going to be a little bit less. And in those two places, as long as it's around transit, you're going to be fine over time.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, listen,
well
you heard
said.
it here first. Jazz, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you so much.
We didn't get through half of what I wanted to pick your brain about, so you're going to be back on very soon.
Part two.
Part
We
2,
probably
3,
have
and
to do-
4.
Love it.
Probably have to do that. And guys, again, if you find this useful, please hit that subscribe, share it with people, and leave some comments. Let us know what you guys like to see.
Good and the bad,
The
nicely.
good and the bad. And make sure to watch our last episode about freed condos and residences.
Yeah, that's the
And
hottest.
Yeah, that's one of the, I would say, hottest condos right now. It's happening in downtown Toronto. Make sure to check that out, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
you, guys.
you.